Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Medicine 3.0, your podcast for precision medicine, AI in medicine. And this week I had such a fun conversation with Amber Brueseke. She is a nurse by training. She is now a macros coach. I would call her a fitness influencer, macros influencer, nutrition influencer. And she just has learned so much in this space over the last decade. And she was a wealth of information. I could have interviewed her for much longer than I did, but I think you're really going to enjoy it. All right, Amber, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I am very excited. You know, we've known each other for about 10 years, haven't really spoken very much for the last 8 years.
Not because anything bad happened.
No.
I just moved away.
Yeah, you moved away and we were both busy, you were busy doing what you do, which everybody will learn about, and I was busy. So I'm excited to have you, and just really, I think you bring a unique perspective. Can't wait for people to hear. So I asked the same question to everybody. How did you get where you're at knowing what you know?
Yeah, really great question. For me, I think I have to go all the way back to 14. So kind of stick with me. It's not going to be, I'll go fast. But 14 was really a pivotal age for me because it was the point where at the YMCA, you were allowed to enter the weight room. And growing up, my mom was a fitness instructor. She taught group fitness classes back when like aerobics and step aerobics was really big. And some of my earliest memories are me in the childcare room watching my mom teach this step aerobics class. And so I had a model of fitness growing up, and I was very excited when I turned 14 because that was when my mom could take me into the weight room and show me the weights, and that was a very exciting moment for me. And so she took me in there, and from a very young age my mom really normalized weightlifting as a female was normal. That wasn't weird. We weightlift. That's just a normal thing. And I'm really grateful for that normalization and that encouragement. And it really, shaped my life and shaped how my health and fitness has been. And weightlifting has played a role in my life since I was literally 14. Not to say that I was a huge weightlifter throughout my high school years, but I at least went into the weight room and it wasn't an odd thing. Right. So fast forward into having my first baby. My husband was in medical school at that time, first year of medical school. And that first year of medical school, when I was pregnant, I was able to use the weight room, and I would go during my pregnancy. And then when I had my child, they didn't provide childcare. And I was like, what am I going to do? I can't, I need to continue to exercise. And so I got my first gym membership and started going to group fitness classes. And, my baby was taken care of in the childcare, and I went to these group fitness classes. And it was at this point where I guess I should back up. I got my degree in nursing, worked as a nurse for several years, ended up having my baby, still worked as a nurse. But it got to the point that my husband was in medical school. He was going on to residency. I ended up having a second child during medical school. And I got to this point where it didn't make any financial sense for me to continue to work as a nurse. And so I decided to stay home as a stay-at-home mom. And I had modeled for me at a very young age that my mom had 7 children, and she was a group fitness instructor, and that worked with having a lot of kids. And I thought, I can do that. And so I got my group fitness instructing license and started teaching classes. And for the next 8 years, that's what I did as a career. As a stay-at-home mom, ended up having 2 more babies. So if you're counting, that's a total of 4 babies. And did group fitness classes, and I loved that time period of teaching. Would take all 4 of my children to the group fitness, put them in the childcare, go teach my classes. I was able to get paid to work out, and it just felt like a win-win in that point in my life. Fast forward to about 9 years ago, I had this experience where I was working out a ton. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. Working out wasn't hard for me, but I felt like my body didn't actually look like I worked out. Like I spent a lot of time in the gym, but it didn't actually look like I worked out. And I knew that the missing piece for me was nutrition, because I never really cared. I never really paid attention to it. I could kind of eat whatever I wanted. And, that was just kind of how I went through nutrition. And I stumbled across a blog post that was talking about this thing at the time that was called IIFYM, if it fits your macros. And as I was reading through, most of the time as a registered nurse, someone who has done a lot of nutrition and science classes, I read through diets and I'm like, well, that's dumb. Dumb idea. That's not going to actually work in the long run. And
Yeah.
as I'm reading through this, in my mind, I was saying this actually, there's like some scientific sense to this. There's some nutritional sense. Like we're hitting
Yeah.
on a lot of the actual science of nutrition in this. So I ran my first research study of one, my N of one, and
Hmm.
decided to start counting macros myself. And I was absolutely floored. In I set a New Year's resolution 2016 to get a six pack, started counting macros, and within 8 weeks I had a six pack. Now I already started fairly lean, right? But
Sure.
I was floored with how my body shifted so quickly when I started aligning my nutrition with my goals. And I never intended to start a business. I just said, this is amazing. I have to tell more people about what is going. This is incredible. And so I started an Instagram account, called it Biceps After Babies, because at this point I had 4 kids. And I just started sharing what was working and sharing my food and sharing that this was an amazing thing, that I was able to get a six pack and I ate ice cream every single night during that period of time. Like that blew my mind. And so I just
Hmm.
started sharing it, and people came out of the woodwork and said, "Oh my gosh, will you coach me?" And I was like, sure, let's do that. That sounds really fun. And boy, did that just blow up, because as I started working with women and started getting them results, they were telling their sisters and their friends and their moms, and I was getting referrals and really starting to understand how to coach people and how to take my research study, my N of one, and really extrapolate it to being able to serve and help other women. And that was the start of Biceps After Babies, and that was 9 years ago. To this point, we've served over 10,000 women in being able to help them to be able to, what I teach women to do is become the scientist in their own journey, to be able to become the coach in their own journey, to start to understand their unique body, because we're all different. And that's the thing I love about macro counting, is very customized and unique to the person. It's not like a generic diet where we just say everybody cuts out carbs or don't
Right.
eat after 7 p.m. or whatever the rule is. It's customizable to the person who's sitting in front of you. And that is really the beauty of macro counting. And so that's what I've been doing the last 9 years, is coaching and training and teaching and helping women to be able to build more muscle, lose fat, and be able to feel really good in their bodies.
I love it. I love it. I mean, that whole journey, that was actually remarkable to me. I'm curious, you mentioned your mom. Does your mom still work out? Is she tell
She
me,
does. She is a big fan of Orange Theory Fitness these days, and so every
really?
single time I go visit my mom, she takes me to an Orange Theory Fitness class. It's like literally the only time I ever go to an Orange Theory Fitness is with my mom. But she's in her mid-60s, and she still does Orange Theory Fitness. She's still very physically active, and yeah, she was a big role model for me growing up.
That is so cool. I'm curious, obviously you've kind of lived this very active lifestyle. Have your kids kind of adopted it at all?
Yes. I mean, so this is the thing that I always think about. I mean, when I tell my story, I'm very aware that most people did not have the experience that I had growing up.
Right.
And most women, their role model, a lot of the women that I talked to, their role model had a very negative relationship with food, a very negative relationship with their body, always on diets, right? So that's what a lot of women have seen modeled for them. And I recognize
Yep.
that my experience of what I saw modeled was very different. And at the same time, any one of us can break that chain and be that role model that we want for the next generation. And so one of the things that I love is being able to see women be able to break that chain. They had a mom who had a poor relationship with food, a poor relationship with their body, and that woman can be the break of the chain, because our kids do, they model what we do, not what we say. So it doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you say your body is good, food is neutral. Like, it doesn't matter if you say those things. If you don't really feel those things or implement those things in your own life, your kids aren't going to listen. And I've
Yeah.
learned that from a very young age, that if I try to tell my children to go and exercise or tell them to go and work out, that is, my teenagers are never gonna they're never gonna do that. But what we have done a really good job of is just showing our kids that that's an important thing. So we've worked out, we've built a gym at our house, and we'll go and work out, and our kids will come and join us. And I feel like it's starting to pay off at this point, because I have a 17-year-old daughter who now goes and lifts several days a week by herself out in the gym. She doesn't want my help. She just
That's
wants to do it on
awesome.
her own, which is fine. And I have a 15-year-old son who just the other day, he like surprised me and went out into the gym and lifted. And so yes, it is not so much what you say, it is what you model. And if
Yeah.
you didn't have that model growing up, you can be that model for the next generation. And for those people who are listening, because I know I'm going to get people who are like in their 60s and they have grandkids and they're like, well, that ship has already sailed. I had a client just recently who is in her 60s, and she came to me and she said, because she's been making some big changes in her life, eating a lot better, implementing strength training. And she said that her mid 20-year-old daughter came to her and was like, Mom, I'm so inspired by you. It's been so awesome to see you doing this. I just joined a gym and I'm going to start lifting weights like you. So it is never too late to be that switch of your family tree and be that example to the generation that's coming under you.
That's awesome. I mean, it's like that extra, it's kind of like the whipped cream on top. It's like, it's not just changing you.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to change others along with you, be that example. Like you said, break that chain of maybe not being the best role model and starting to be the best role model. So I absolutely love that. I'm curious. So you get to this point where women are like, hey, Amber, I need your help. I want you to coach me. And what did that look like? Did you feel like you had to like go get any special education? Did you feel like, what did you do to like make yourself ready to be able to coach people?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that I came into this with a little overconfidence of like, yeah, I can figure that out. That's super easy. Maybe too much confidence in that realm. But I did come in with the heart of wanting to help, like really wanting to help people. And so I will say my coaching when I first started is very, very different from how I coach now. And I've learned a lot along the school of hard knocks of figuring out what does and doesn't work. Because I think the first thing, like I said, I ran this research study N of 1 and it worked for me, but that is very different from taking that and now applying that and helping other people to learn. So, I had a very strong background in terms of medicine, reading research, nutrition, things like that from my medical background. And that was very helpful. But really a lot of this was learning more how to help women with behavior change than even the exact tool that we were using. And so that, I think that has been one of the shifts that I've realized and recognized as I have grown as a coach. As I thought as a coach, I could just come and say, hey, eat this, do this workout. Here's your workout. Here's your meal plan. Go forth and conquer.
Yeah.
And that was my naivete when I came into coaching at the very beginning. And I very quickly realized that I could give people the most perfect plan, the most perfect workout, and they freaking wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I had very quickly realized that a lot of what I was doing as a coach was not prescribing. It was not telling women what to do. It was two things. It was one, helping them to understand and get to know their body. And the number of women who are disconnected from their body, hate their body, don't want to look at their body, don't want to pay attention to their body is very large. And so it's reforming that relationship back with your body and being able to pay attention, learn from your body. And then two, being able to address the person who is utilizing the tools that they're utilizing. And when I say this, I mean that we can see this in the example of a paintbrush and an artist. You could hand me a paintbrush and I will paint something on a canvas. And then you hand that paintbrush to Pablo Picasso and he will paint something very different on a canvas. It's the exact same tool. It's the exact same thing that we're both utilizing to create something, but the person who is doing the creating really, really matters. And I think that's the thing that I've learned over the years is helping to address the person who is utilizing the tool. And when we can address that person and address their beliefs, their values, their habits, the way that they think about things, the way that they speak to themselves, then any tool that you implement is going to be so much more successful. So I think over the last 9 years, I've learned a lot in terms of how to help women be successful. And the more I've learned, the more I realize it is less about exactly what you're doing and more about how you're doing it.
It's fascinating. So my son, when he was in 8th grade, we decided to homeschool him for 1 year. We call it his Netflix year. I was his math teacher and it was all Khan Academy. And I would always tell him like, it's about learning, not finishing.
Sure. Yeah.
And so very similar to like, it's about how you use the tool. Like a math book is only as good as like, do you actually learn it? And so when you think about like helping women use these tools, like what are the main blockers? You rattled off some things, but what do you run into where you're like, this person is really struggling? And maybe you don't even have to think that now because you just know like I need to take somebody through this process so they can actually adopt the tool. What are
Yeah.
some of the main things that you run into?
Yeah, so I think we need to bring in the term self-sabotage, because that is the behavior that we see, that we all recognize. And so I
Hmm.
like to create a definition around self-sabotage is when we say that we want something and then we act in opposition to it to make it harder for
Yeah.
ourselves. And we all are familiar. Self-sabotage is a human behavior. It is something that we do. But anytime you're acting in counter to what it is that you say that you want, that's a self-sabotaging behavior. And that is what I saw a lot in my clients is they desired to work out. They desired to eat healthy, but for some freaking reason, they just couldn't do it. They couldn't execute on it. And so I got really curious about self-sabotage and trying to understand, why does this happen? Why do we say we want something and then act in direct opposition? It doesn't make any sense. And the more I was able to dive into self-sabotage and really understand where it comes from, the more I was able to help my clients be able to identify and start to shift it. So I like to use a framework of a tree to be able to describe this. And if you think about the tree and you think, if you look at a tree, what do you usually see? You see the leaves, you see the flowers, you see the fruit. And that we can liken to the results that somebody sees, right? How much they weigh, how much muscle mass they have on their body. Any of those results that we're seeing in the 3D sense are going to be like those leaves on the tree. But the leaves aren't just floating in midair. The fruit is not just floating in midair. It comes from somewhere. Where does it come from? It comes from the branches and the trunk that is supporting and creating the tree. And so we understand logically this very easy connection between the actions that we do create the results that we get. If you want to create new results, you got to take new actions. We know that link. We understand that link. It's a very easy link for us humans to understand. And that is where a lot of diets, that's where a lot of well-meaning people who want to help you change your life go. They say you need to change your actions, you need to eat healthier, you need to work out, you need to lower your stress, you need to do all these things. And we say yes, 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 that makes sense. If I do these things, I'll get new results. Okay, I'm on board with that. But again, that trunk of that tree is not just floating in midair. It comes from somewhere. And where does it come from is actually underground, right? We have these roots that we can't actually see, but that they're supporting everything that it comes into the tree. And those roots are your beliefs, your values, your identity. And now this gets a lot harder because we can't see this. I can't see your beliefs. I can't see what you hold as your identity, but those things absolutely 100% shape the actions that you take and then the results that you get. And so if we're just sticking in the 3D and we're just sticking with actions and do this and don't do that and prescriptive diet mentality, then we're never going to actually address the underlying root cause, which is the beliefs, the identity, and the values that that person holds. And again, it's harder because you can't see it, but it is incredibly powerful. And so when I see self-sabotaging behavior, that is a key, an indication to me and to the client that we are dealing with something down there. We're dealing with something in the beliefs, the values, the identity that is not aligned with the actions that you want to take. And so we could sit there and we could make a chart and we could try to give you rewards and we could do all the things to try and change the behavior on the behavior level. But if we just take a step back and we really work on that beliefs, values, and identity piece and we shift it there, well, then the actions become a natural byproduct and the results become a natural byproduct from there. And so that's where I'm focusing a lot with clients is when I see self-sabotaging behavior, when I see you acting not in accordance with what you say that you want, that is an indication to me that there's a belief, a value, or an identity that we need to address and shift to be able to make that long-term change.
When you start talking about belief, values, and identity with your clients, do they know those off the top of their head?
No.
Are they oh, these are the
No,
things?
that's what makes it tricky, right? And that is where coaching can be so valuable because we all have blind spots. Just like a car has blind spots, we all have blind spots. And with a coach, I can see your blind spots. You can see my blind spots a lot better than I can see my own. And so coaching can provide that perspective of things that we cannot see. The hard part about beliefs, identity, and values is they are all subconscious. They are not in our conscious awareness, which makes it very difficult to see them because they're in our subconscious. We're not thinking these things usually overtly, but the programming that our brain is running on is absolutely running on these beliefs, values, and identity. And so one of the things that I do in coaching is it's a little bit like medicine where the symptom is presented, and then we got to go to the diagnosis. So the symptom that is presented is the self-sabotaging behavior.
Yep.
And that is something that the client sees. It's distressing to them. They don't like it. They wonder where it's coming from. And so they bring that to me. And then I'm able to help with that differential diagnosis of, well, okay, what are the beliefs, the values, the identity that are creating these actions? And how can we identify and then shift those? So that's what I do a lot with my coaching is I'm helping clients to identify the beliefs, values, and identity that they don't even see that is the problem. I help them to identify it, bring it to the surface, and then we can shift it. And then when that shift actually happens and takes hold, then the actions start to naturally become a natural byproduct, and the results become a natural byproduct from there.
Yeah. It's not surprising, but surprising how much macro coaching is like life coaching.
Oh, totally. There's a absolute overlap between the two. Macros is the tool, and there's a scientific basis to the tool, right? Like I said, there's nutrition, there's calories in, calories out. There are like scientific principles that we have to be in alliance with if you want to create a body composition change in yourself. Yeah. So we have that tool, and that was where I started, right? Of like, this tool is amazing. I can eat ice cream and see fat loss. This is fantastic. Love this tool. And I realized that the tool itself is just like the paintbrush. If you don't have the person who's utilizing the tool in the right way, it's not going to be successful. And so we have people who come in and they like start counting macros and they're not doing any of this other work. And then they're like, well, this tool doesn't work for me. And I'm like, well, it's not the tool, friend. Like, it's like gravity. It's like gravity is working on you. Like it always is. That is the scientific principle. But the person who's utilizing the tool really, really matters. And so that is where a lot of the behavior shifting, a lot of the life coaching, a lot of the understanding your subconscious and working alongside and reprogramming your subconscious for success goes into play. And so, yeah, I play in both of those realms of science. We got to have the science. The science is the science. Sorry, we can't get away from the law of thermodynamics. And we got to match that with the person who is doing it, the mindset, the beliefs, values, and identity that they're bringing to the process. And that, I would say, is almost even more important than the tool.
Yeah. You mentioned the law of thermodynamics, and I hear this term, reverse dieting. Yeah. And so I'd love for you to explain, what is reverse dieting? Does it break the law of thermodynamics? Like, help us understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to talk about this because, gosh, I feel like if more people understood this, they would have a better understanding of how to be successful long-term. So we know that the body is adaptable in a myriad of ways, right? The reason we're able to get stronger is because our body is adaptable and it adapts to the stress that is applied to it. And so our bodies are adaptable. They're master adapters. It's a way that we as a species have been able to stay alive. And one of the ways that our body adapts is our body actually burns more or less calories depending on how many calories we feed it. And this makes sense because during periods of famine or during periods of scarce food, if we we're in a caloric deficit, a large caloric deficit, we would die very, very quickly from starvation. And, we can adapt and our body can actually burn less calories. So I liken it to like a fire, where if you have the fire that's burning nice and hot and you have lots of wood on the fire, and then you start slowly removing that wood, eventually the fire is going to burn lower and lower and lower and lower. And the same thing happens with our bodies. When we create a caloric deficit, for a while, our body will continue to burn the same amount of calories, but it gets smart and it says, oh, we're not getting a lot of calories. I'm going to actually start to slow movement. And there's been lots of research studies that have shown this, that you think you're moving as much during the day, but you actually slow your movement down. You don't get up off the couch. The body processes get more conservative. Like we hold on to not burn as many calories. And so what happens is when you eat less food over a long period of time, your body adapts, metabolic adaptation, and we start to burn less calories and less calories and less calories until your body can find, okay, we're only eating 1,300 calories. Okay, I figured out how to only burn 1,300 calories. And then you get these women who are like, dude, I'm only eating 1,300 calories and I'm not seeing, nothing's happening. What is going on? My body's broken. And no, your body isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it's meant to do, which is survive. And so we see this with women who, especially who have a long history of dieting, are always trying to eat less and less and less and less. You have this metabolic adaptation. Now, the good news is that metabolic adaptation works in both ways. Just like your body can adapt down, your body can adapt to eating more calories. And just like we can put more fuel on the fire and the fire will start to burn hotter and hotter. The same thing happens with our metabolism. And so a reverse diet is basically a controlled increase of calories over time to be able to pull that metabolism, encourage that metabolism to burn more and more and more. Now, of course, there are ranges that we're working with. I'm not saying that we can increase our metabolism to 17,000 calories a day and we can decrease our metabolism to 0, right? There's a range that we're working with, but there is absolutely a range, and most people don't recognize that there is this range. And so if you're currently eating 1,200 calories and nothing's happening, it's likely because your body is currently burning 1,200 calories, but we can get it to burn more. And so reverse dieting is slowly adding calories on a controlled basis, allowing your body to make that adaptation and be able to eat more and more. And I've had clients who've come to me eating 800 calories a day, and we've gotten them up to 2,100 calories with no weight gain. Like, it blows their mind. But
Wow.
the body is adaptable. The body can get up there eating more calories. We just do it in a controlled manner. Because if you jump from 800 calories to 2,100 calories, you're going to be in a caloric surplus. Your body is going to store fat. But if we do it on a controlled basis and allow time for your body to adapt, you can eat a lot more and not put on fat and be able to increase your metabolism. And now that woman's eating 2,100 calories, maintaining, now we can create a caloric deficit. I can't create a caloric deficit from 800 calories. It's just not possible. So then we can get to the point where, if you're wanting to create that caloric deficit, we have a well-burning metabolism. Your body's not in that like stress state of being in a caloric deficit of always trying to eat less food. Now we can create that caloric deficit and actually see the fat loss that you want, that you were never able to see at 800, 900, 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah. I love, that's a great explanation, by the way. I think, many people, when they hear reverse dieting, they're like, oh, that doesn't make sense to me. But I think you did a great job. There are papers that show that people start moving less.
Yes.
Like, our bodies just adapt. We don't even notice it.
Yep.
Our bodies will slow down.
Yeah. Like, you need to get off the couch to go get something and you just don't get up off the couch.
Right.
Right. Because you're tired. And so, the law of thermodynamics still applies.
Yeah.
But you are burning less calories per day. And that is why you're not seeing results. And the key with this is like the thing that I hope people understand, and this is why I say this is the missing piece for people having long-term results, is for a lot of people, weight loss is not the hard part. It's like they can lose the weight. They can lose the 20 pounds. It is maintaining that loss that is really challenging. And that's where we see the weight rebound, because people think that if they lost weight on eating 1,400 calories a day, that they have to eat 1,400 calories a day for the rest of their life.
Right.
And so then they don't, because nobody wants to eat 1,400 calories for the rest of their life. And so then they get into a caloric surplus and they weight rebound. Yeah. If we could understand that just because you lost weight on 1,400 calories doesn't mean you always have to eat that. In fact, I don't want you eating that. I want you to slowly reverse, get back up. We can maintain that 20-pound weight loss that you just had, and you can eat 400, 500, 600 more calories a day. Now it's a lot easier to maintain a weight loss when you're eating 2,000 calories a day than when you were trying to eat 1,400 calories a day. You just have more metabolic flexibility when you have a higher metabolic rate.
Yeah. So if you have somebody that comes to you and they're like, okay, this is my body composition. I want to lose fat, gain muscle. And you take them through their macros. Mm-hmm. And at first they're going to be in a calorie deficit because they want to lose some weight. Mm-hmm. Do you find that you have to cycle them through this where you'll do calorie deficit and then go back up and then calorie deficit and go back up?
Yes. For most clients, it is a cycle. And that's another mindset shift for a lot of people, because they've been taught that they have a goal weight and they just keep going in a caloric deficit until they hit that goal weight. And I have clients, the phrase that I always use is we set an end date, not an end weight for your deficit. And so we're going in knowing that this is going to be a 6-week deficit or an 8-week deficit. And it doesn't really matter where your weight is at the end of it. At the end of that period of time, we're reversing, we're getting you up, we're spending time at maintenance. And then if you need to lose more weight, then we go back into that deficit. And that is it's a hard sell. Like, it's a hard sell for me to get women to buy into this, but you have to understand, one, metabolic adaptation that we're trying to not get sucked into. And two, that again, the goal isn't to lose the fat. The goal is to lose the fat and keep it off. And that requires a different approach. And so many women come to me and they've lost the fat and then they've regained it. And then they've lost it and they regained it. And like, that we got to do something different from what you've been doing. Like what you're doing isn't working. We need to do something different. And so, yeah, I take clients through cycles. And I always say 95% of your life should be spent at maintenance, intentionally just maintaining your weight. And then if we want to go into a deficit, we go into a period of time, a defined period of time for a deficit, and then we get out. And then we live at maintenance, and then we go back into a deficit. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time. But at the end of it, you're actually going to be able to maintain it. And so wouldn't you rather it takes a little bit more time, but you're actually able to maintain it at the end, rather than what most women do, which is just cycle up and down for, 40 plus years.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think. I'm of the state of mind that most of us have to pay attention to what we eat. Like most of us are going to have to measure or pay attention. Like most of us cannot just eat, in medicine, we call it ad libitum. Like you just eat whatever you want. And I don't believe that's true. I think most of us are going to have to. And if you agree with that, then how do you help people make that mind shift? That this is actually something you're going to have to pay attention to the rest of your life.
Yeah. So what I love about macro counting is it becomes a bridge for clients to a place of moderation. If I go to most people and I say, do you want to learn to eat with moderation? They're like, yes. How do I do that? Because for most people, it's very like either I'm eating all the food that I love and I'm living my best life, or like I'm obsessively calorie counting and I have to restrict everything and I can't ever, eat anything that I want. Right. And so it's very much like there's a middle ground there. I think we all recognize there's a middle ground, but most people have a really, really hard time nailing down what that middle ground looks like, where yes, I can have a bowl of ice cream at night and the rest of my day, it has a lot of nutrient dense food with a lot of fiber and enough protein, right? Like those things can both we can have a diet that has that balance in it. But if you tell most people eat with balance, they just have no framework for what that even looks like. And so in my mind, and I've seen it over and over again, macro counting becomes this really beautiful bridge of helping people to be able to find what moderation looks and feels like. I think about it like training wheels on a bike, where you don't just go out on a two-wheeler and you just find balance. You put training wheels on to kind of have some bumpers to feel what balance feels like. And then eventually you can take those off. And so my goal when I'm coaching clients is not for them to count macros for the rest of their life. Like I don't think that we have to obsessively weigh and log and do all this to the T for the rest of our life. But what you will learn in the process of macro counting is you will learn skills and understanding that you will be able to carry with you long-term. You will learn what it feels like to eat enough protein. You will learn what foods you have to consume to be able to eat that protein. You will learn how to consume enough fiber. You will learn how to include, 10 to 20% of fun foods into your diet while having the rest of it be very nutrient dense, whole foods that are going to support your health, right? You'll find that balance. You'll understand portion sizes. This is a huge one. Most people have no concept of portion sizes. And so when they're estimating in their head how much something how many calories are in something, they're way off. We just have no concept of portion sizes or of calorie counts or of the nutrition that's inside of our food. And by paying attention to that for a while and tracking it, you start to understand, the number of people who have told me this, I didn't know that bananas were carbs. Peanut butter is actually a fat, not a protein. Like there's a little protein, but it's really a fat. Like just the nutritional knowledge that you get from paying attention to your food is something that never leaves you. So even if you're able to, and I want clients to be able to pull back from being able to have to track everything, but what you carry with you is that nutritional awareness. Even when I'm not tracking, I am very aware of, have I eaten enough fiber today? Have I eaten enough protein today? Am I balancing? Am I getting enough nutrient dense food with some of my, side of fun as well? So I'm that nutritional knowledge and that awareness, to your point, I think we all have to be aware. We have to be aware as consumers. I don't think that everyone has to specifically weigh and track every single thing they eat for the rest of their life to be able to be healthy. But that bridge of macro counting teaches people the skills that the general population is very much lacking in terms of just nutritional understanding.
Yeah, I think that should be reassuring for people that, it is a tool. You have to learn how to use it. But once you have it, it's part of your arsenal, then maybe it goes on autopilot. It's still there, but you don't have
I'm very aware, like like I'll run through my day and be like, oh gosh, I really haven't had a ton of protein. I'm going to make this meal a little bit more protein heavy. It's not obsessive. It's not restrictive. I'm not beating myself up, but I am just nutritionally aware of what my body needs, and I'm able to provide that. And I think that's a
Yep.
really empowering place to be in your relationship with food, and where I love to be able to get women to be able to make those decisions from a place of rationality, of like, what does my body need, rather than how a lot of women make decisions, which is from a place of guilt and shame and beating themselves up.
Well, Amber, I could ask you questions forever, but thank you so much. I mean, 10,000 clients helped already. Where
Yeah.
can people find out more about you?
Yeah. So if you like podcasts, I have a podcast, Biceps After Babies Radio. We have like 350 plus episodes there. And then everything is just Biceps After Babies. That was one of the best things I did when I branded my company, was picked a very unique name. So we're Biceps After Babies on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and bicepsafterbabies.com. So anywhere you search Biceps After Babies, you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber.
Thanks.